Well, the most important thing when it comes to picking a recurve is to get a poundage that's comfortable for you. Probably the most common mistake made when it comes to choosing a recurve is people overbowing themselves. And that means a bow that's too heavy for them to shoot comfortably. And a great rule of thumb on choosing a recurve that is comfortable for you is one that you can hold at full draw for 5 seconds. Now, full draw is bringing the bow all the way back. But I want to give you a good solid anchor point to start with, and you might find one that's more comfortable for you. I like to use a 3-point anchor system. And that means when I draw the bow to full draw, to make sure I draw it to the same spot every time, I use my thumb right in the corner of my jaw. I use my middle finger, put it right in the corner of my mouth, and I barely touch the string on the side of my nose. But for a weight that's comfortable for you, I suggest a recurve bow that you can come to full draw like this and hold for 5 seconds. If you can hold that bow for 5 seconds without shaking uncontrollably or too much, then that means that's a bow that you can shoot comfortably. And that's super important when it comes to developing the right form as well as shooting accurately. The next important thing is to figure out what full draw is for you. And everybody has varying lengths because of different heights, men, women, children. Once you find out that comfortable poundage, and again, that's the most important part of choosing a recurve that you want to shoot. But once you find that poundage, and let's say it's 30 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever that is, then you want to figure out your full draw. What is your draw length? A simple way to figure out your draw length, or very close to a super accurate way, and a very simple way that you could do by yourself, is to have an arrow with just a piece of cardboard punched right through the middle. So what I'm going to do is put that on the string right here. And then what you want to do is take that piece of cardboard, put it right on the front of the bow, and then I'm going to draw that to full draw. Then I'm going to let it down slowly. Then I'm going to take a tape measure and I'm going to measure that length from the inside of the cardboard to the string. And that will tell you your draw length. Once you have your draw length figured out, something as simple as this, or an even easier way is to go to a Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, and they can help you figure out what full draw is to you. The reason full draw is important is because recurves are measured at 28 inches. That means if you draw the bow to the very front of the riser right here to 28 inches, if a bow is marked 40 pounds, that means it was measured 40 pounds at 28 inches. If you draw a bow longer than that or shorter than that, it will change the poundage of that bow because you're either putting more stress on the limbs or less stress on the limbs. So again, to simplify that, if a bow says 40 pounds and it's a recurve, that means it was measured at a 28-inch draw. So then you know that that bow will be 40 pounds. So if 40 pounds, for example, is your comfortable draw weight, then you want to look for a bow that is marked 40 pounds because at 28 inches, it'll be what it is. Now, if you draw less than that, you can assume that with most recurves, every inch that you draw over 28 inches, that bow will gain 3 to 5 pounds. So in other words, a bow that's marked 40 pounds, if you draw it to 29 inches, that bow will actually be 43 to 45 pounds. If you draw it an inch less to 27 inches, it will be 3 to 5 pounds lighter than 40 pounds. So that way, if you go to order a bow, you can look at the poundage and know what that bow is going to be at your specific draw length. So it's very important to figure out your draw length, and that is not to be confused with arrow length, and we'll talk about that later. So again, to recap, the most important thing is a bow weight that is comfortable for you as an individual. Then the next thing that I'm going to try and really simplify down, because you could really get in the weeds, is bow length. There's a lot of different bow lengths available. Most recurves come in 58, 60, or 62 inches, but there's a lot of variations in between. For a beginner, I really wouldn't worry too much about that. There's an old rule of thumb that if you draw 27 inches or under, you may want to look at a 56-inch bow. If you're 28-inch draw to 29.5, then you want to look at probably a 58 or 60-inch bow. If you're over 29.5, they say a 62-inch bow. But more importantly, and without getting confused, I tell people to look at what you're going to be using the bow for. If you're going to be hunting out of a blind or you want a shorter bow, then go with a shorter bow. But most importantly, go with a comfortable poundage. I keep drilling that home because, again, that is the biggest mistake most people make, is getting a bow that's too heavy for them. And remember, if you're getting a bow for hunting, the majority of states allow 30 pounds as a legal draw weight. So a lot of people get hung up on too heavy of a bow. That is not an issue. It's more important, check the regulations in the state you'll be hunting or states you'll be hunting, but make sure it's a bow weight that is comfortable for you. I wouldn't worry too much about bow length for a beginner. Find something that's comfortable and get started. Next, I want to talk a little bit about arrow selection, and that is super important, choosing the right arrow for you. It's hard to explain how important arrow selection is, but it's as important as the bow you choose, if not more important. I'm going to give you an analogy. If you have a size 9 foot, you could put it into a size 12 shoe, but it's not going to perform very well. And you might be able to cram your size 9 into a size 8, but it's not going to be very comfortable and it's not going to perform very well. Think of an arrow and choosing an arrow like that. Well, to choose the proper arrow length, what you want to do is, again, put your arrow on the bow and you want to come to full draw. Now you can use the piece of cardboard that I showed you earlier to figure out your draw length. And what you want to do is add another inch to 1.5 inches from your draw length. Now that's very important because if you have a broadhead on the end of it, or if you're excited to draw back a little far, you're still going to be safe and you're not going to be drawing that arrow into the riser or into your hand. Once you figure out your arrow length, which again is 1 inch to 1.5 inches, whatever's comfortable for you, past your draw length, then you want to look up an arrow selection chart. Or the guys at Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's can help you figure that out as well. If you want to go online and do it yourself, Easton Arrows has an amazing chart that's broken down between hunting and target shooting, and they will give you a suggestion based on the poundage of your bow and the length of your arrow, and they will give you some arrow options to use that should shoot great for you. So there is a super simplistic way to help you choose a recurve bow and the right arrow for that bow, and I hope you'll go out and try it, because I think, like me, you'll end up being a little addicted.